talking about the basics of waves. When you think of a wave, I'm willing to bet virtually all of you, myself included, think of water. And water is a type of wave. So we'll get into why water is a type of wave and what defines waves as they are. This definition is crazy. A wave is defined as a disturbance in a medium that transfers energy, not matter, from one place to another. It's going to be easier, though, as we get through and break down those words. So let's look at this picture and figure out what those words. A disturbance is a fancy way of saying energy being brought in. So in this case, these two kids shaking this slinky, that would be the disturbance. They're providing the energy, kinetic energy, by moving it. The medium is what that energy moves through. So in this case, the slinky. And what's moving is always going to be energy. That's all waves transfer is energy. We'll practice that a lot, though. Go ahead and get that first bit into your notes. All right, so here's another example. Look at this dog up top. He's in a pool on top of a float. One day he's sitting there and somebody decides to jump in and do a cannonball. Well, the cannonball, the kid jumping in, would be the disturbance. That's the kinetic energy that he's transferring to the water. The water takes that energy from where the kid jumps in and transfers it over to the dog. So again, energy is transferred. What's it transferred through? The medium is water, and the disturbance is the kid jumping, because that's where the energy came from. You can read through this if you want, but it's just kind of a picture of how waves move, because they actually stay in place pretty much, but I'll talk about that in a minute. Go ahead and put this into your notes. All right, so since these were Pear Decks done live and you're doing this to catch up, pause them when you see the question, see if you know the answer, and then I'll give the answer. So pause it. Hopefully we're going to know by the end of today, energy is what waves transfer. All waves transfer energy. What is a medium? Go ahead and pause. A medium is the thing that the energy transfers through in a wave. This will definitely not be on the test, but if you look at this picture, this is a real bridge. It took about 3 years to build out in the state of Washington. And after it was built, about 4 months later, there was a very windy day. And that wind transferred enough energy to this poorly built bridge that it created waves in it. And actually, during the next 3 days after this windy day, the bridge broke and fell to the ground. And there's actually a class in college out there where it's a diving class. You can take how to dive underwater, that if you go down to this river and bring up a piece of this old bridge, you get extra credit for it. So we said this already, but we're going to say it a bunch so it sinks in. Waves carry energy, but they don't really move the medium. It disturbs it. It just oscillates, which is a really fancy way of saying moves back and forth in the same place, but it doesn't move across the room. Think of dominoes. If you set up a bunch of dominoes and touch the first one, it hits the next, the next, the next. It transfers energy from one to the next. Same thing with how waves work, except instead of with dominoes, it's with particles. Right now, you're listening to my voice through your computer. What's happening is my vocal cords create a vibration, and the vibration hits the molecules outside of my mouth. Those are coming, since this is a recording, out of your computer speaker. The molecules vibrate the air outside the speaker, which hits the next molecule, the next, till eventually it hits the molecules in your ear, and that registers as sound. Go ahead and press pause and put this into your notes. So the big 3 words right now, big things: disturbance. That's where the energy enters and comes into the system. The medium, what does that energy move through? We've already talked about water, air, slinky, and energy. That's what's transferring. That's what's moving. So pause and add that to your notes. All right, a kid is playing with a small toy boat in a pond. The student throws a rock into the pond. This creates a small wave that moves the boat up and down. What is the disturbance in the medium in this case? Pause and think of that, and then I'll give you the answer. The disturbance is how the energy gets into the pond, so that's the rock. The medium is what does that energy move through, and that would be the water. Speaker blasts music across a room. What would the disturbance be, and what would the medium be? Pause it. Disturbance is the speaker, and that speaker transfers the energy through the air, so the air would be the medium. Couple things to remember. A mechanical wave, we'll talk about the difference between mechanical and electromagnetic eventually, but for now, everything we've talked about is a mechanical wave. It must have a medium. Right now, the only thing we know that doesn't need a medium, and I don't mean scientists, I mean in this class, are light waves. Light waves can travel through outer space because they don't need a medium. Well, mechanical waves, like everything we've been talking about so far, do need a medium because they have to hit molecules that transfer the energy from one to the next. Pause and put that in your notes. If you want, you can YouTube search this and get a song break, but I'm trying to get you caught up, so I'm not going to make you watch that. We already said, hopefully you know this. Whenever you see these questions, press pause, think of the answer, then unpause. The slinky is the medium. The water. The ground. Explain the following scenario. A few pebbles are dropped in a still body of water, which results in this picture that you see. Where did the initial energy come from, and what kind of energy was it? Well, it came from the pebbles, and because they were moving, it's kinetic energy. What happens to the energy as time passes? It transfers from one thing to the next, so it moves along the medium, and the water eventually will become calm. Is there sound in outer space? No. There's not sound in outer space because there's no air in outer space. Outer space is a vacuum, which means if I were to scream in outer space, the vibrating particles coming out of my mouth would hit nothing, so they wouldn't transfer and you wouldn't hear anything. And you should be good on your notes.